Individualism versus collectivism. When we talk about individualism and collectivism, they are two words that many people have never heard of before, have very little understanding of what either word means. You tend to find the common misconception that if you call yourself an individualist, then apparently this makes you greedy, self-centered, someone who doesn't care about other people but yourself. Even with regards to collectivism, people do not truly understand the definition, why collectivism is a contradiction to a government serving people. They generally don't understand what it means. So we will start with the basics. Collectivism. Collectivists believe that the group is most important, putting the collective needs and wants of the people over the individuals. Collectivists don't understand that the main element of the economy under collectivism is the government, and the purpose of the people collectively is to serve the government.
I die with a joyful heart, knowing the immeasurable achievements of our soldiers, women, workers, and the contribution unique in history of the youth who bear my name.
This war will not come to an end the way the Jews imagine, with the extermination of the Aryan people. Instead, it will see the complete annihilation of the Jews. I do not play at war. I shall not allow myself to be ordered about by generals. With iron will, I shall determine the moment to attack. That is my mission.
There are various different collectivist ideologies. There is socialism, communism, fascism, theocracy, feudalism, Nazism, imperialism, and many others. You hear socialists all the time speaking about public ownership, where they like to believe that production is in the hands of the people collectively. What socialists don't understand is that through the means of high regulation and taxation, the real owner is the government. High taxation enables the government to earn more in their business than they do. Most importantly, however, through regulation, this enables the government to dictate how many hours they work, what machinery they can use, what height they can work at, how much they would be paid, how much they can produce, what they can produce. The power of government regulation gives the government the power to control and dictate production. We can look at the following definitions: socialism, collectivism, control, ownership, and regulate. So to start with socialism, it is important to look at the various definitions of socialism to gain a better understanding of what socialism is and what it is not, as well as to understand the importance of those other definitions that help define socialism. Socialism, a way of organising a society in which major industries are owned and controlled by the government rather than by individual people and companies. 1. Any of various economic and political theories advocating collective or government ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. 2a. A system of society or group living in which there is no private property. B. A system or condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the state. 3. A stage of society in a Marxist theory, transitional between capitalism and communism, and distinguished by unequal distribution of goods and pay according to work done. 1. Any of various theories or systems of social organisation in which the means of producing and distributing goods is owned collectively or by a centralised government that often plans and controls the economy. 2. The stage in Marxist-Leninist theory, intermediate between capitalism and communism, in which collective ownership of the economy under the dictatorship of the proletariat has not yet been successfully achieved. So now that we have the definition of socialism down, the first definition, as you will see, ties into collectivism, as collectivism is what defines socialism, whereby government is the main element of the economy. Now the key point we will look at is the fallacy of this quote. Any of various economic and political theories advocating collective or governmental ownership. As explained, the one who regulates is essentially the owner. This is where we show the other definitions to back this point up. Regulate. 1. To control or direct according to rule, principle or law. 2. To adjust to a particular specification or requirement, regulate temperature. 3. To adjust a mechanism for accurate and proper functioning. 4. To put or maintain in order, regulate one's eating habits. As you can see, to regulate means to control, as the government is the regulator. It is the controller, so the word regulate ties in with control. So what about if we look at the definition of ownership? 1. The state or fact of being an owner. 2. Legal right to the possession of a thing. The relation of an owner to the thing possessed. Possession with the right to transfer possession to others. The act of having and controlling property. So what can we take from the definition of ownership? Well, ask yourself this question. Who is the owner of property under socialism? The government. Why? Because socialism is all about the plan. And in order to carry out the plan, you need the planners, who were given empowerment by the people. The planners are the ones who conduct, organise and govern society. You hear socialists piss, moan and complain that if it wasn't for the government, we would all become terribly exploited and monopolised. Fact is, exploitation exists in all types of economies, just more extreme under collectivism. At least under a free market capitalist economy, it can be beat out by competition. Another thing, monopolies are fairy tales under free markets. As quoted here, manufacturing and commercial monopolies owe their origin not to a tendency imminent in a capitalist economy, but to a governmental interventionist policy directed against free trade and laissez-faire. Ludwig von Mises. So when looking at the definition of ownership and speaking about socialism, the quote on the definition of ownership defines precisely what government has the power to do. As quoted here, the relation of an owner to the thing possessed, possession with the right to transfer possession to others. Exactly. The government has the right to transfer the possession of your money into the hands of others. Remember, private property is abolished under socialism. So who is it that conducts, governs, controls distribution of wealth and aims to create this socialist utopia? The answer is the planners. Who are the government? Not to forget, it is the government, after all, who has the power to regulate, in other words, control, how much you produce and what you produce. As you see, the other definition of ownership clearly quotes the act of having and controlling property. Well, isn't that what the government has when it regulates your economy? Of course, the controller is the owner.
Hands tied behind the back, an expertly aimed shot in the neck, and the fall into a huge mass grave. These people were not killed by the Nazis. They were killed by one of the Allies, the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was killing people in this way for many years, both before and after it joined the Allies. These victims had no memorials. They were buried in anonymous mass graves. The murderous power that killed them, and the powers that collaborated with the murderer, were never actually prepared to talk about them. The memory of millions of innocent victims was erased from history.
So we get back to the whole idea of public ownership. When government regulates how much businesses can produce and what they can produce, it is the people that are dancing to the tune of the government. If you were the owner of production, you would be the one in control over how much you produce and what you produce. But this is clearly not the case under socialism, because this destroys socialism to its very core. This is the reason you have desperate lefties resorting to the idea of anarcho-socialism. But what you must first understand is that these people are flaming hypocrites. Take Kami Abams, for example. Remember how he pissed and moaned about how we would all be terribly exploited if it wasn't for government regulation?
A preference for no regulations is a preference for freedom of the employers over freedom of the workers. My question is, how can you objectively define that as a free market?
Corporations want to stamp out competition to consume all wealth and power for themselves.
And that's exactly why there are regulations in place in order to prevent corporations from forming monopolies. Again, with or without them, you cannot have a free market.
But the hypocrite is now supporting an idea where you have socialism without government.
Hey, let's just pass a law that says they can't do that. Problem solved. Some ordinary people are feeling so disconnected from their communities that they turn to psychoactive substances to try to escape from it all. Hey, let's just pass a law that says they can't do that. Problem solved. But these problems haven't been solved, have they? Not in the slightest. Instead of looking to find the root cause of the multiple social ills in our society, we try to just get rid of the symptoms alone, to absolutely no avail.
The reason this is a fallacy is because socialism requires the distribution of wealth. If you have no one to govern, conduct and control, who is going to distribute wealth evenly? You can't create equality without a planner. The problem with socialism is, it never does create equality. That's why those type of lefties are desperate to hold on to their ideology of socialism without government. Because central planning fails, not only because the government finds it impossible to achieve its plans for planning for the people, but because the economic calculation required in achieving such plans is impossible. What central planning creates is the very thing people protest against, a self-serving government. That's because because they can't provide for you, they decide the easier thing is to serve their own interests in what they think is best for you. They will never tell you that, however, which is why I'm going to do a video on central planning to educate you of this matter. So socialists live in a fantasy world. The fantasy world is called, oh, the government would never do me wrong. Oh no, not our government. Government is our saviour. Government would never do that to us. Yet there you are sitting with a political class filling its own pockets at your own expense. Oh, government would never do that to us. So what do you call politicians filling their own pockets with your taxpayers' money? The redistribution of wealth, which is taking your taxpayers' money collectively, keyword, as you know, is socialism. Yet because socialists don't like that, their fantasy and reality creates exploitation and monopolies. They live in denial of it. So we get back to collectivism. What collectivism really is government being the main element and controller of the economy. And the purpose of the people collectively is to serve the government. That's why it is called economic slavery, turning the people collectively into slaves to serve the main element. That's why they brainwash you and ridicule you for supporting individualism. They call you an extremist or some fruitcake or racist. Why? Because that's what Marxism is all about. It's left-wing tactics to scare people, to keep them enslaved, chained by political correctness. How very dare you support common sense? We'll call you a racist. Now, I'm not saying that Britain or America today is Nazi Germany, but what I am saying is Nazi Germany used this same tactic on children. They took the kids away from the parents, even from the day they were born, and indoctrinated their school system, where they indoctrinated to believe what the Nazi government wanted them to believe, whilst they would ridicule anything that dared oppose it.
Sehr gut. Und nun, Kinder, werden wir unsere Naturkundestunde halten.
Hans' school teacher is about to give the class a little lesson in natural history.
Jetzt einen Hasen. Und nun zeichne ich einen Fuchs. Nun passt gut auf, was jetzt hier passiert.
Now let's see what they'll learn from this little lesson.
Wer kann mir sagen, was wir daraus lernen können? Hans?
Das arme Häschen.
He said the poor rabbit. Is he out of his mind?
Donnerwetter doch mal! Dummkopf! Was für eine blöde Antwort ist denn das? Geh in die Ecke! Was? 1, 2, 3! 1, 2, 3! Rauf auf den Stuhl!
What would the Führer think of such a stupid answer? What would Herr Goering say? And Herr Goebbels?
Dummkopf! Wer kann mir nur die richtige Antwort geben?
Now then, who can give the correct answer?
Ich weiß! Es zeigt uns, dass die Welt den Starken gehört!
The world belongs to the strong.
Und dem Brutalen!
And to the brutal.
Der Hase ist schwach und feige und verdient.
The rabbit is a coward and deserves to die. They spit on the rabbit. Nice kids.
Gut! Gut! Ausgezeichnet! Und nun, Hans, was denkst du jetzt von dem armen Häschen?
Ich hasse es! Es ist
He
ein
hates the rabbit. There's no room for weaklings. Hans is learning
Das ist
fast.
nicht ein deutscher Hase.
My, how he hates that rabbit.
Ich hasse ihn!
So, das ist besser.
Hans has come around to the correct Nazi way of thinking. Nice going, eh, Adolf?
As Hitler once said, society's needs come before the individual's needs. This was Hitler saying that society as a group comes first over individualism. Socialists detest reading or hearing this because it destroys their entire argument. Why? Because, as stated before, capitalism is an individualist ideology. What defines capitalism is individualism. You cannot manipulate the word capitalism from what defines it to suit yourself. So the fact Hitler was putting the collective group over the individual's needs and wants was basically saying he was opposing capitalism. That's why he said capitalism has run its course. Meet Donkey. Oh, and look, Donkey has found a new party, promoting Scottish independence, promoting people's rights, a balanced budget, lower taxes, the economy, and sound money, which they want issued by a UK central bank which will be setting the interest rate, spending power and taxation. Each and every plank is a solemn pledge and promise. The Scottish nationalists have hitched Socialist Donkey to the independence platform. Socialist Donkey will make the Scottish economy strong, without pride of ancestry promoting mass foreign immigration or hope of austerity. And here comes the mischief lobbyists. By the looks of them, they mean Socialist Donkey no good. Careful, Donkey, careful. Oh. Don't bite in that one. There's dynamite in it. NRA, TNT. Better lay off that too, Socialist Donkey, or you'll get the political heebie-jeebies. No. He wants his bottle and he won't be happy until he gets it. Russia couldn't stand the stuff, but Socialist Donkey will try anything. That's the well-known Russian dance, meanwhile sitting down and getting nowhere. Well, there's the end of the last bit of our democracy. Lower taxes, balanced budget, sound money, economy, all destroyed. There's Socialist Donkey running wild. Donkey is up to more mischief. Aha! He sees the pork barrel. But look! There's recovery simmering on the stove. Look out there! Don't spill the beans! Socialist Donkey has spilled the beans and now the place is on fire. Now Socialist Donkey is heading for postal service and is heading for nationalisation. And now look at the mess he's created.